Hello everyone, this is part 10 of What If Naruto and Hinata trained together and a spark happened, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Ino and Choji moved carefully into the perimeter of the base camp, not wanting to be mistaken for attacker. One of the sand medics spotted them, and the larger Chunin signed the password. Ino, Choji, what's wrong? Shizune trotted over. When she saw the body in Yamanaka's arms she slowed. Who is that? The doctor asked, also taking note of Choji's uneven stance. Target number 6, Yama, Ino answered. Sadly, her real name is Yori, of the Noki clan. That sounds familiar, Tsunde's assistant pondered. Ino told her the rest of the story while Shizune finished treating Choji. How is everything else going? Akamaki asked. So far, pretty good, the lead medic answered. Your dad's killed target number 1, though Akamaki-san was hurt in the process. We patched him up, and he is resting. And Kakashi's team captured target 4. No casualties on our side so far, but we've lost 14 true sound ninja. It sounds like Kabuto's side is getting hit harder. Any news on the traitor? Ino's question dripped with venom. Supposedly, he's in the fortress, one of the sand healers answered. The Kazekage and his team were headed there. Guy-sensei, Tenten and Lee shouted in unison, as their leader was struck. He fell backwards, away from the open palm that had impacted his neck. The ninja connected to the hand stepped out from the alley, into the open square. He looked to be at least 40. His light brown hair was thinning and starting to go gray around the temples. He had sharp brown eyes, and his nose had been repeatedly broken, and imperfectly set. He was taller than any of the Leaf Shinobi, now that Guy was down. He was also bulkier than the teens, but not to the degree he was slowed by his musculature. He turned to face the 3 warriors, and his visage brightened. The gods have smiled on me this day, he told them. A Hyuga has fallen into my lap. He assumed an unfamiliar fighting stance, raising his hands, his palms pointed towards them. Tadashi Suzuhira, Rock Lee said angrily, it appears we have found one of the targets. Tadashi is one of the last survivors of the Suzuhira clan, Tsunade explained. We have designated him target number 3. The Suzuhira clan was once famous for their ringing palms taijutsu, but over the last few decades have shown a sharp decline. The ringing palms is a very powerful and efficient technique. Do not let him strike you with his palm, whether it is a slap or an open hand strike. The Hyuga betrayed the Suzuhira. Tadashi berated Neji. A long time ago, our clans were allies, and friendly rivals. Only the ringing palm could match the gentle fist, and vice versa. But when Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha offered the Uchiha a place in their new hidden village, the Hyuga abandoned us without a second thought. Your family took a position of power and prestige in the Konohagakure, while the Suzuhira clan was forced to take ever more demeaning and dangerous missions, just to stay alive. That isn't true, Tenten announced vehemently. Tadashi snorted in derision, but Neji shook his head. We cannot be sure, Tenten, he told her, but you are right, that is not how our history records it. What? Tadashi looked suspicious, and on the verge of a rage. According to the records of the Hidden Leaf, Neji explained, but the Hyuga and Suzuhira clans were approached together. The Hyuga decided to join the new village, but the Suzuhira refused. Your leader believed the Konoha was doomed to fail. And then, 21 years later, my great-grandfather asked your clan to unite with the Hidden Leaf village. This time the head of your clan not only rejected the offer, he violently attacked his former friend. Needless to say, we did not try again. That's garbage. After hearing Neji's version, his anger turned to amusement, and Tadashi shook his head ruefully. You're trying to make me give up, instead of crushing you. He took a half step forward, but even if your story were true, it would not matter. By defeating the now legendary Gentle Fist, I can restore the ringing palm to its rightful place. Suzuhira jumped forward, aiming the heel of his left hand at Neji's headband. The Hyuga Jonin slid out of the way, and aimed his glowing finger at Tadashi's extended wrist. But the older ninja interposed his right hand. Neji's first 2 digits struck Tadashi's lifeline, and the teen Jonin yanked back his hand with a look of pain. Aloud, deep note reached all their ears, and Neji shook his hand out. Suzuhira leveled his open hand, pointing it at Hyuga's heart. Lee darted around Neji, then dropped to a crouch. Leaf Gale, he swept the sound shinobi's legs, and continued his spin into a leaf whirlwind. His second kick failed to connect, as Tadashi pushed Lee's foot down, before flipping back to his feet. Lee tried to regain his stance, but his right foot landed oddly, and he nearly fell. Lee ended up standing on one leg, staring at their opponent. "What did you do to me?" the taijutsu master demanded. "The gentle fist targets soft tissue, muscles and organs. The ringing palm splinters bone," Neji explained, and like the R technique, the Suzuhira style also impacts the chakra network, though without the Byakugan, they don't have the same level of precision. They make up for it by striking a larger area with their palm. "Can you keep going, Lee?" Tenten asked in concern. "Of course," Lee grinned, "I'm fine, inner." He tried to place weight on his right foot, and nearly fainted from the pain. "Your ankle is broken in 6 places." Neji looked through his teammate's skin with the Byakugan. "I would suggest you sit down for now." The chakra-stunted youth looked ready to rebel, but Tenten lightly tapped his ankle with her toe. A shiver of agony shot up Rock Lee's spine, and he finally complied. "Tenten," Neji took control, "see if you can begin to patch up Lee. I will deal with Tadashi." "Just as I want it," the vengeful warrior agreed. "I have no issue with your partners. So long as they stay out of this, I will not attack them." The younger Jonin stepped in, aiming his gentle fist strikes for Tasashi's neck and lungs. The ringing palm master leaned back to avoid the attack at his throat, and his left palm stopped the blow to his lungs, again without ill effect to himself and reverberating tone. Neji attempted a kick to his opponent's gut, but Tadashi's right hand lowered, and Hyuga was forced to abort his attack. Branching out from the pure gentle fist, Suzuhira emphasized the first word. He jabbed his palm at Neji's face and shoulders, and the leaf ninja fell back. 8 trigrams palms, heavenly spin. As the chakra dome expanded, Tadashi did not even try to dodge. Instead he extended both his hands, and caught the sphere. The attack continued to spread to its full size, but it could no longer move forward, so its formation became uneven. Neji was no longer the center of the now elliptical shell, and the back of the heavenly spin came perilously close to Lee and Tenten. "I always found the name of that attack ironic, and a little insulting." Tadashi pressed, his palm grazing the right side of Neji's chest. Though the contact was incidental, Neji felt one of his ribs crack from the deadly touch. "Neji," Tenten appeared next to him, "are you okay?" "I will be fine," he exaggerated slightly. "How is Lee?" "He's good," she told him. "He can't walk because of the breaks, and they are beyond my ability to heal. But the fractures are clean, and it doesn't even hurt if he stays still. I think you'll be able to fix it. I could hold this guy off." Tadashi struck at Neji again, but the Hyuga Jonin was able to evade. Tenten withdrew her weapon scroll. "You don't want to get involved," Tadashi warned her again. "No," Neji told the young woman, "I don't think any of us can defeat him alone, but you and I together. You would put her at risk." Suzuhira overextended, and nearly took a gentle fist tap to his wrist. He darted his hand away at the last possible instant. "She and I are teammates, and friends," he answered, to try to protect her by telling her not to fight. It would be insulting. Tenten smiled at that, and unfurled her parchment. "Weapon recall, shuriken string jutsu," she incanted, reaching into the chakra-bound scroll. She snapped her hand, and a 10-foot cord uncoiled from the text. Hundreds of shuriken were threaded on the cable, and when the end cleared the scroll, Tenten flicked her wrist again. The throwing stars separated from the string, and whipped at Tadashi like a swarm of riled insects. He intercepted most with the flats of his hands, allowing a handful of minor hits to his upper arms and lower legs, in order to protect his core. And each shuriken he touched crumbled. But Tenten was not done. She brandished the cord like a lash, striking his face before wrapping the metallic thread around his left wrist. The kunoiki reeled the line in, trying to pull him off balance. Tadashi grabbed the cable with his free hand, and it began to vibrate. The thread snapped, before Neji could capitalize, but not before the pulsing cord cut slightly into Tenten's hand. Neji's ally did not react to the injury, but instead thrust her hand into the scroll again, withdrawing a short spear. "You are talented, girl," Tadashi offered sadly, But you should have stayed out of this. Suzuhira changed course, and stabbed the heel of his right hand at Tenten's chest. She blocked with her weapon, but the wooden pole snapped, and Tadashi's fist was not even slowed. Except suddenly Tenten was not there. She dropped into a crouch and swung both parts of her broken tool at his right leg. The blunt end struck his knee, while the spearhead impaled his thigh. He redirected his palm to the top of her head, and Tenten dived away, rolling to land on her knees facing him. Neji, now 8 trigrams, 64 palms, the oldest active Hyuga had closed in on his newly discovered rival. His fingertips began to rapidly shoot at Tadashi's back, but before the first struck, Suzuhira had managed to turn and stop the strike with his palm. His speed matched Neji's, and each gentle fist attack was met with a ringing palm. When Neji's attack ended, Tadashi had been struck only 7 times. And Neji's fingers were broken and bloodied, his nails eroded away. Neji looked to want to cradle his hands, but neither one could hold the other. Thus the gentle fist fails. Tadashi seemed to tower over Neji, grinning darkly. He drew back his right arm threateningly, aiming for the Hyuga teen's forehead. But before he could finish the battle, he was jerked away from Neji. He glanced down and saw a scarf wrapped around his right elbow. He reached for it, but unlike the metal cord, the cloth did not echo the sound in his palm, nor did it snap. Did you forget about me? Tenten asked, annoyed. She tugged again, pulling Tadashi further away from Neji. Your little sonic technique works great against hard things, like metal and bone, she observed, but when you broke my spear, it just broke even, it didn't disintegrate or splinter. The ringing palm doesn't seem to do so well against softer materials, does it? She flicked her wrist, and the cloth unwrapped from his arm, the weight striking his chest. She faced him, the 4-meter tapestry in both her hands. He charged her, but she caught his hand in the scarf, sidestepping him. She twisted his trapped arm, putting all of her minimal weight on his shoulder. His arm was nearly torn from the socket, but he managed to free himself just before the dislocation. She threw out the end again, and he tried to destroy the weight with his left hand. Only this mass took no notice of his technique, and his wrist was nearly broken from the impact. The cloth is a special composite, soft and stretchy, but unbelievably strong, even before being enhanced by chakra binding, she told him sternly, drawing back the cloth, and the weights on the end are loose sand. There is nothing in this weapon for you to break. Then I will just break the wielder, he countered. He ran towards the kunoichi, but she threw one of the weights at him with her right hand. He dodged the attack, but Tenten had planned for this. She hurtled the other mass with her left hand, letting the scarf drag across her injured left palm as the first weight was drawn back. Tadashi stepped directly into the path of her second projectile, which struck his already injured right knee. The adult shinobi crashed to the cobblestones. Tenten readied her weapon for another strike, watching him carefully. Why? He sounded on the verge of tears. I finally had this chance. I have worked all my life for it. That is precisely why. Neji joined Tenten, still holding his arms oddly. You have been too focused on defeating the gentle fist, a short-range technique. You counted on your ringing palm's ability to stop metal weapons and most sorts of energy attacks. But that tunnel vision left you vulnerable. Have you ever fought an opponent who specializes in water jutsu? No. Tadashi considered that, propping himself up on his left knee and right arm. I suspect you would have the same problem with them. Lee agreed with his rival, you cannot shatter water. But I have to defeat you, Hyuga. Is it so important you kill me? Neji asked, pity touching his impassive voice. I never intended to kill you. Tadashi seemed insulted, but I must overwhelm the gentle fist. Why? What do you mean, why? I need to restore my clan's place, their honor. Suzuhira was almost pleading. If I cannot win against you, what good am I? But you found a place, in the village hidden in the sound, Neji argued. I have little doubt Shin Busata would accept your clan. Then he showed his hands, and you did defeat the gentle fist. This will take months to heal. I can no longer effectively fight you. The fact that you almost took down an entire 4-man squad, alone, is even more impressive. Tadashi collapsed forward, laughing. And yet in the end I am the loser, beaten by Hyuga words. I was once sunk in hatred too, Neji confided, until a friend pointed out the errors in my logic, and the futility of my anger. I suppose it is only fair I do the same for you. Neji, if you can help Lee, I will carry Guy-sensei, Tenten told him, returning the weighted tapestry to her weapon scroll. We should get the three of you back to medics. Neji nodded, and helped the taijutsu user to his feet. Tenten collected their leader, placing him over her shoulder like a sack. Hyuga boy, Tadashi Suzuhira dragged himself back to his feet, as they started to move off. They all paused, and turned back to look at him. Maybe, if the gods permit, we can fight again. Without all the angst. I would enjoy that, Neji smiled. And if you see Busata or his girlfriend, Tadashi added, tell them I would like to speak with them. We will. Aruka Yumino felt as if he were being crushed by the weight of Anko Mitarashi's seething disdain. He knew it was his own fault, for choosing to take position between Anko and Yugao, but he felt it was the best course for the success of their mission. Can't you two get past this? He asked carefully, like when we first met. Yugao, Aruka, Hisashi Hyuga told his students, we have a new teammate. I would like you both to meet Anko Mitarashi. Yugao bowed deeply, and Aruka blushed, as the girl stepped out from behind Hisashi. Anko, this is Yugao Azuki and Aruka Yumino, he informed her. She took another pace forward, and regarded her new partners warily. Nice to meet you, Yugao extended her hand. Anko shook it, settling slightly. Hi, I'm Aruka, the oldest of the genin mumbled. He clasped hands with her as well, and Mitarashi smirked at them. So Hisashi-sensei said, she commented dryly. You were so worried, Aruka needled Anko lightly. Not really, she told him, I was just embarrassed because of how and why I was assigned to your team. So, what do we do with her, Lord Hokage? Tsunade asked the third Hokage. In the center of the room, a girl of 13 years sat, clutching her head, and sobbing. The simple wooden chair sat at the apex of a complex, powerful ninjutsu seal, one designed to stimulate memory and prevent dishonesty. Despite the jutsu, and a seemingly honest desire to help, Anko Mitarashi had been unable to answer their questions. Even the attempt to remember caused her mental anguish, and sent flares through the evil mark on her neck. That in part is up to Anko, Sarutobi answered carefully, but if she desires, I am preparing a place for her among the genin teams. Tsunade's legendary temper flared, but she forced it under control, both to avoid berating her sensei, and so Anko would not hear. She left with that damn snake, and now she just comes waltzing back, she snipped quietly, and you are going to trust her with other genin. She's probably some mole. I believe that Anko did not know about her sensei's crimes when she left with him. The leader of the Konohagakure lectured his former student gently, and that Orochimaru discarded her when she refused to help him. She has no loyalty to him. He could have set up some other way to use her against us, the leader of the medical corps counted harshly. That strange seal could be a means to control her. And even if she really was a reject, that doesn't mean that anyone will trust her. She'll be lucky to be treated any better than Yukihana's son. What would you have me do? The Hokage snapped. Imprison her. Execute her. No, she faltered, of course not, it's just. I have found a perfect spot for her, Sarutobi explained. Jun has not recovered from his mental trauma. He is resigning his post. That leaves Inoiki short-handed. Genma and Rado might be cousins, but they act like brothers. If I move Genma from Hisashi's team to Inoiki's team, I can place Anko on Hisashi's team. Why there? Hisashi is familiar with being unfairly marked. I trust him to take care of the girl, he told her his reasoning. Aruka has become a firm believer in second chances, so I expect him to treat Anko fairly. And Yugao is so polite and quiet that she gets along with everyone. I think this team can accept Anko, be her haven. In the end, it is up to her. Tsunade looked back at the teen. Do you think she can handle it? Anko was strong enough to attract Orochimaru's attention in the first place. The teacher of the Sannin sounded sure of himself, and she escaped from him. She will persevere. I heard everything they said, so I figured you two would hate me as the intruder who broke up your team. Anko grumbled. Of course, I ended up being wrong about that. Yugao's eyes narrowed, and she said, that is why you made it so hard to get close to you. She didn't make it that hard, Aruka defended her. Hisashi-sensei, will you teach me the staff blade? Anko asked sweetly. Of course, Anko, the Hyuga Jonin was surprised by the genin's request. Though he had grown to love it, his choice of the underappreciated weapon was to thumb his nose at the clan. He was not sure why Anko would want to learn it. She could not want to set herself further apart. He decided it didn't matter, he was happy to pass on his skills. Me too, Iruka suddenly jumped in. Unlike Anko, Hisashi knew exactly why Iruka wanted to study the blunted sword. Okay, I will teach you both, he smiled indulgently at the energetic teens. Iruka tumbled to the ground. Anko set aside her practice weapon, and leaned over her practice partner. I'm sorry, she said, her sincerity suspect due to the smug chuckle she could not quite hide. Still, she extended her hand and helped him up. Are you okay? She asked. He shook his head ruefully. Yeah, but I can't seem to keep up with you. You're leaving yourself open, on purpose. Hisashi comment was more for Anko than for Iruka, you don't go full out against her. The male genin shrugged with a sheepish look, and their weapons master sighed. Fine, then both of you come at me. Later, after their lesson finished, Anko confronted him. You didn't hold back against Hisashi-sensei, she told him, I could tell. So why hold back against me? You're my teammate. And sensei isn't, she sounded confused. Back at the academy, my class had a saying, sensei is a polite way to say enemy. He explained, I mean, he's stronger, has a longer reach, and is more skilled. The only way I stand a chance against him is to be serious. With you, I can test new techniques. If they don't work, at least I don't get drubbed too badly. Are you saying I'm not as good as sensei? She seemed affronted. Are you saying you are? He was surprised and confused. Probably not, she agreed, discarding her false anger. With a twinkle in her eye she added, yet. Says the man who took repeated beatings just to get close to her, Yugao taunted, but kindly. Iruka blushed, and grinned, and even Anko smirked at him, before remembering she was supposed to be mad. You know, neither one of you ever told me how you became friends instead of just teammates, Iruka mused. But neither woman looked happy at the reminder. Come on, give me a kiss, the blonde-haired genin said mockingly, stepping closer. His redhead friend grinned darkly. Buzz off, Anko hissed, but there was an undercurrent of worry in her voice. She tried to maneuver past them, but the older boys cut her off. I keep hearing that you aren't a traitor like your boss, he insinuated, and you're cute enough. So why don't you show a little loyalty, and give me some action? As if, she tried to evade him again, but they would not let her escape. She pushed off the darker-haired youth, and nearly slipped through. But the blonde grabbed her shoulders, and forced her into the wall. So you're not really one of us, his cruel smile turned even more vicious, then maybe we should teach you a lesson. Leave her alone, a gentle, but stern, voice said behind them. They both looked back, and between them Anko saw the slender form of Yugao Azuki. Mitarashi had never seen her teammate angry before. The younger Kunoiki's eyes were tight, and her mouth was set in a firm line. So you're with the spy. The red-haired boy glared at her. She's not a spy, Yugao argued. Yugao, stay out of this, Anko managed to sound annoyed with her ally. Yeah, Yugao, the older boy sneered, run along. It's not like you could make us do anything. I don't have to, she said, just a hint of smugness in her voice, do I Kakashi-senpai? Kakashi. Both of the boys blanched, as they turned further. To her right, another teen stood, taller than any of them, his height exaggerated by his upright shock of silvery hair. His left eye was covered, but his right eye was fixed on the younger shinobi. You two need to come with me, he ordered. The genin looked like they wanted to run away, but Kakashi's expression turned nasty, and they could not flee. Now, he told them, and they followed him with obvious fright. Yugao, Anko, Hitaki nodded to them, before he escorted the bullies away. I didn't need your help, Anko protested, I could have handled them. Probably, Yugao agreed, but you should not have to. Azuki smiled at her, and after a second, Mitarashi returned the smile tentatively. That doesn't matter, Yugao said quickly. For the first time since they had been reconvened, Anko was in complete agreement. What does matter, the slimmer, quieter Kunoiki continued, is that you wouldn't leave the two of us alone. The male shinobi stammered for a response. Just when did you two finally hook up? Yugao asked. Anko glared at her again, but Iruka answered. About over 2 years ago, he started. Iruka lifted the noodles slowly to his lips. After Naruto had left Jiraiya, the boy's first mentor had decided it was time to try for Jonin rank. After a hard day of training, Yumino had stopped at Ichiraku for dinner. Though his sore arms made it tough to eat, he savored the rich flavor. The flap rose again, and Anko's head poked in. She wore her typical self-satisfied smirk, and opened her mouth to address Yuki. Hey, old man, her mode of address was eerily familiar to Aruka's ears, gimme a diet beef ramen. Then she looked to the left and saw her former teammate. Never mind, she said quickly. She dropped the tarp as she quickly exited. For a second, Aruka allowed himself to stare at where she had stood, regret filling his eyes. Then his face hardened, and he stood, all thoughts of pain and exhaustion gone. Keep the change, he told Ayami, dropping a handful of coins that covered the bill twice over. He quickly left the stand, glancing around until he saw her again. Anko, he called to her. He could see the muscles in her back tense, and she increased her walking speed. Anko, wait, he shouted a little louder, not caring it was after sunset. He started jogging to catch up, and she suddenly turned, ducking into a random alley. He broke into a run, determined not to let her get away. He turned into the narrow side street, and found she was not that far ahead of him. He put on a final burst of speed, and caught her right arm. Anko, stop, he pleaded. The kunoichi gave up her escape and looked back at him. Her expression was one of obviously fake surprise. Aruka, she said through the forced grin, twisting her arm slightly to try and free herself, I'd love to catch up, but I'm really busy. Bull, he countered, fiercely maintaining his gentle grip, you were all ready for a meal at Ichiraku, and when you saw me, you ran. Why are you avoiding me? I'm not avoiding you, she tried to lie, but neither of them was convinced. You have been avoiding me for almost 7 years, he told her. In that time, you haven't said 10 words to me that weren't business related. Whenever you see me, you turn and go a different way. It not as if you kept in touch, she argued. I used to try to talk to you all the time, he growled. After 3 years, I got the hint. And I still send you a card every year on your birthday and at Yuletide. Yugao is out of the Anbu, she countered. Why don't you go back to bothering her? It was never about Yugao, Aruka shouted at her. The reason I followed you too was you. I was in love with you. I suppose I still am. Anko looked like she had been hit. She had not been expecting that, but the moment he said it, it seemed so obvious. He followed her in learning the staff blade. He asked her to come with him when Yugao left. He had always kept trying, no matter what she did. Anko suddenly leaned in and kissed him. Aruka almost pulled away in surprise. Despite his confusion and uncertainty at her sudden change, he forced himself to stay in that moment. When she finally stepped back, he released her arm. But she grabbed him, and dragged him back to her apartment. Of course, after she had her way with me, Aruka teased, she tried to kick me out. But you wouldn't go. Anko was not yet sure if this was a fond or a sad memory, but she gave her boyfriend the benefit of the doubt. Suddenly she froze, looking up at the roofline. Come on out, Sakujun, Anko announced. Even after all these years, I still remember your stink. A tall, mildly skinny sound shinobi slithered into view. He wore a snakeskin coat and breeches. He stared mockingly at Anko. It has been a long time, Anko, he purred. Is that? Aruka asked. Kerai Sakujun, she answered, the other survivor of Orochimaru's second genin team. Kerai Sakujun will be target number 2, Tsunade instructed. He is a former Leaf Shinobi. He was one of Orochimaru's genin apprentices. Unlike the other 2, he was not subject to the curse mark treatment, and did not leave when he learned of Orochimaru's treachery. Anko felt mildly self-conscious as the eyes of many shifted to her. He was the snake's primary student until Kabuto appeared. Why he serves Kabuto, after being previously supplanted, is not entirely clear. Unlike Kimihiro or me, this guy never got the curse mark, vented Mitarashi, and when Kimihiro died, and the snake started to show his true scales, this guy didn't leave like me. Unlike her, Kerai's voice was like the hissing of a serpent. I didn't get scared and disgusted, and run home. I was happy to have a chance for real power. His posture changed, relaxing, but don't let me interrupt this little trip down memory lane. I want to hear all about little Anko's life. Plus, given the way these two girls are acting now, we must be building to one hell of a catfight. Tell me about it slowly, and you might get to live a little longer. Like I tell you anything, Anko hissed, biting her thumb. Summoning art, torpedo boa jutsu. An 8-foot-long constrictor emerged from her hand, and shot at Kerai like a missile. But he caught the snake easily, and crushed its neck with one hand. You try to summon snakes against me. He mocked. The sound warrior started to tense, until Yugao started talking softly. I was the one who broke up our team, she started, it was around 9 years ago. I cannot believe this, Anko barked. Yugao did not back down from her teammate, but also could not meet her eyes. Hisashi-sensei has been dead for less than a month, Mitarashi continued, and you're breaking up the team for some guy. That's not true. Azuki's protest was soft but firm. Joining the Anbu Black Ops is a great opportunity, and a privilege. Please, the snake user snorted, if Mr. Tall, Pale, and Coughing hadn't enlisted, you never would have considered it. Don't talk about Hayat that way, Yugao snapped back. Say what you will about me, but leave him out of this. I'll say what I want about either one of you. Orochimaru's apprentice was almost happy that Yugao was fighting back, taking it a justification. Like you have no. Whatever insult Anko had prepared, it was cut off when Iruka stepped between them. Anko, don't say anything you might regret, he counseled sadly, anything you can't take back later. So you're going to take her side. Mitarashi growled at him, I always knew you preferred. This isn't about sides, he cut her off, we are teammates, friends. Do you really want to hurt Yugao, just because you are sad and disappointed? Anko turned away. He could not see the truth in his words reflected in her face. Instead, she bluffed, that's not the point at all. We are Team Hisashi. We should stay together for him, to honor our teacher. Not abandon our comrades for someone who barely notices you. The last barb seemed to hurt both her teammates. Iruka was pained by the statement, but Yugao's temporarily abated anger returned. Goodbye, Iruka, the younger kunoichi said pointedly. And then she turned and walked away. She paused briefly to look back, but Anko was still facing the other way. With a defeated sigh, she returned to the village. I suppose I better tell the rest, Anko sighed, before Iruka tattles on me. You weren't the only one who left that day, the former proctor admitted. What about you, Iruka? Anko asked quietly, not facing Yumino, are you going to leave me too? Well, she spun around, her face shocked and hurt. I don't intend to leave you, Iruka said quickly, but ever since Yugao told us she was thinking about applying for the openings in the ANBU, I've been thinking about my life. I mean, we're chunin now. And missions are great, but without Yugao, we'd have to find a new third. So I was wondering if there was some other way, a better way to serve the village. So I was thinking, we could go back to the academy. We could become teachers. Anko's shock was replaced by incredulity. Teaching. She goggled, me. But I have no patience, and I don't like kids. So you could teach the highest level classes, the 11 to 13 years olds who are in their last year. You could even run the graduation exams, breaking hearts, and dispensing barbed but well-meaning wisdom. Anko looked away again, hiding her saddened face. Her voice was harsh, however. That's just stupid, she told him, even if that didn't sound boring, there's no way that I could ever be an instructor. I'd probably end up beating the kids. Then she allowed her voice to reflect her true mood. But don't let me stop you. You'll probably be a great mentor to some kid. What about you? He asked softly. We're not a team anymore, so what does it matter? She grew angry at his pity. It's not like I need you, dragging me down. Go. Pursue your mediocre dreams and leave me in peace. He continued to stand there, staring her back. Fine. Her sigh was pure annoyance. If you got some reason to stay here, I'm leaving. See you around. She strode away from him, and forced herself not to look back. Iruka swung his staff blade sideways at Sakujun's head. But Orochimaru's student dissolved into massive snakes, some of which wrapped around the leaf ninja's arms, needle fangs piercing cloth and skin. Did you really think I would be fooled by that distraction? Their enemy asked, suddenly behind the kunoichi. He punched at the back of Yugao's neck, his fist concealed under a mass of vipers. Before he connected, the smaller woman disappeared. She reappeared beside him, slashing with a light wrapped knife hand. He caught the attack, and one of the reptiles around his arm vanished in a puff of poisonous smoke. Yugao could not avoid the fumes completely, and the toxin caused a coughing fit, from the stinging in her lungs. Unable to block or dodge, Yugao was clipped by Kerai, and bitten by the cobra on his wrist. At nearly the same instant, Iruka crashed to the street, unable to stand due to the venom in his blood. Now, my lovely, let's see what you have to offer. He grabbed the front of Azuki's Shozaku and began to tear at the material. Hands off, Anko's pole weapon slammed onto his wrist, dislodging his grip. Yugao collapsed, paler than usual. Leave her alone, sicko, his former teammate growled, stabbing out again with the weapon she inherited from Hisashi Hyuga. You never used to talk to me like that, he scolded her, taking the second hit like it was nothing. I think I'll have to punish you. Maybe I should give your little friends the antidote, so I can play with them more. You don't have to worry about that, she barked, signing, and then quickly pressing her hand to the ground. A quintet of cobras appeared, but oddly colored, with blue and red stripes. Anko pointed to Iruka and Yugao, and one of the meter-long serpents slithered to each of her allies, proceeding to bite them. The remaining three maneuvered up her body, coiling around her neck and arms. Giving your teammates a quick death. He jeered, how stupidly noble of you. Try again, she shook her head, gently petting one of the cobra's hoods. These are my own special breed. Though deadly enough on its own, their special venom acts as an antitoxin for most reptile poisons. Based on the lethality of the pit vipers you had bite Yugao and Iruka, they should both be fine in a matter of minutes. A new subspecies, the lust he had aimed towards Yugao was nothing compared to the desire he aimed at the serpents wrapping the leaf kunoiki. I must have them. Over my dead body. That is the plan. Sakujun leapt forward again, absorbing a blow to the ribs in order to land his own blow on Anko's left breast. The one of his vipers also managed to tag Anko, but one of her cobras bit the same spot, allowing the venoms to mix and cancel each other almost instantly. The other two cobras struck at Kerai, one biting the small anaconda surrounding his left bicep, and the other barely missing his uncovered face. You can't beat me, he told her as they pushed apart. My armor of living scales jutsu can absorb anything you throw at me. In fact, I might have more snakes than I need here. He waved his arm, and a number of the serpents detached. They shimmied quickly towards Anko's teammates. Her loyal cobras rose up to defend the injured leaf ninja, but both were hopelessly outnumbered. Mitarashi quickly sent two of her own guardians to protect her friends. She attempted to summon more snakes of her own to even the odds, but Sakujun cut her off before she could finish the hand signs. One of the vipers slipped past, and bit Yugao again, forcing the cobra to give her another dose of its unique toxin. What now? He mocked, as she carefully dodged. Snakes can only produce a limited amount of venom at a time. Your little creations will run out soon, and then I will capture them, and kill your mammalian partners. And you can't even let me touch you, or you will be poisoned too. Anko's answer was a feral snarl. When Kerai punched her again, she caught his wrist. The vipers darted out to bite her, but before they could touch her skin, they started to burn away. Her opponent's expression changed to one of profound terror as a pattern of black flames spread outwards from her neck, covering her skin. He yanked his hand back, and jumped away. No, you can't use the curse mark, he sputtered. Orochimaru told me so himself. Maybe you shouldn't have threatened the people I love, she hissed in his ear, suddenly behind him. And then she stabbed her staff blade through his chest. A handful of the surviving serpents tried to bite her again, but again they were burned away by the powerful aura of the curse mark before they could touch her. She followed up with a spinning kick to the head, forcibly ejecting his body from her weapon. Anko started to pursue, but a burning pain in her legs and stomach stopped her. She found herself panting slightly. This is the cost of the cursed mark. She pondered silently, while Kerai slowly drew himself upright. That hurt, he conceded, but my loyal shell was able to divert that attack so you didn't hit anything vital. And it looks like you are having trouble controlling that power. Despite his calm, Sakujun was bleeding heavily. But he could see the agony she bore, and smiled. The others were able to go at least 5 minutes. You're falling apart after less than one. Then he gestured again and one of the remaining snakes launched itself at her. But before it could strike, a hawk intercepted it. It tore the reptile apart with its talons, before flying back. That bird, it's... Anko, stop, Iruka grabbed her shoulder. A single red and blue cobra looked remarkably snug, wrapped around his neck. The summoned hawk and the other 3 cobras were making quick work of the vipers around Yugao. The former Anbu kunoiki was in the process of slowly standing. You don't need to use that thing, he told her, we can help you. You don't have to do everything yourself. Anko, you were right, Azuki told her, but I was too proud to tell you that. Please stop this. We can go back or start over. But I don't want to lose you. I was right. Mitarashi's curse tattoo began to recede. Are you sure about this? Tsunade asked, staring at the Jonin over folded hands. You are the best infiltrator we have. And once you sever ties with the Black Ops squad, you can't go back. I am sure, Yugao told her, you say I am the best, but I haven't been used to my team since. She steeled herself, and forced the admission, since Hayat died. I think it is best if I leave the ANBU, and return to regular shinobi service. Alright, the Hokage sighed. She pushed off her desk as she stood. Do you want something for the pain? The medic asked, as she approached Azuki. No, Yugao answered stoically. She unbuttoned her shirt halfway, and slid it down to uncover her right shoulder and bicep. Tsunade looked at the tattoo, and began the string of hand seals. I release you, she said regretfully, touching her left pointer, middle, and ring fingers to the mark. A sizzling noise filled the room, and Azuki began to cry from the pain. But 3 seconds later, the Hokage removed her hand, and Yugao's skin was not burned. Instead only the loyalty ink was missing. I will add you into the rotation, Tsunade told the younger woman, you'll probably get a mission soon. Thank you, Lady Hokage, Yugao bowed deeply. So, you quit, a soft voice wafted to her ears. Kakashi-senpai, Yugao was surprised to find him outside the ninja operations, waiting for her. Though there was nothing angry or accusing in his tone, she felt embarrassed nevertheless. Yes, I left the Anbu, she said quietly. Because of Hayat. Her head snapped up. Even though she had admitted as much to the Hokage, it upset her to hear someone else say it out loud. Like you were any better. They say you only entered the Black Ops to run away from Rin's death, and as soon as you could deal with it, you quit, she snapped, without raising her voice. But Kakashi merely continued to regard her carefully with his uncovered eye. She blushed, and looked down. I'm sorry. You're not wrong, he shrugged. I promised Obito I would look after Rin. In keeping my word, I finally came to return her feelings for me. When she died, I lost her and betrayed him. And the way she died only made it worse. I joined the ANBU, hoping it would kill me. It took a long time, and a number of near-death experiences to realize that was not what they would have wanted. Then that's where we are different, she looked down. Hayat never wanted me in the Anbu. When I first joined, he barely knew I was alive. Even after I knew he was interested, it was almost a year before he asked me out. And when he proposed, he told me he was not happy dating another Anbu member. I had planned to resign my Black Ops commission after our wedding. But that never happened. Why am I telling you all this? She asked, wiping a stray tear from her eye. He did not answer, and she continued talking anyway. After the invasion, I started seeing him in every other Anbu shinobi. Part of me knew the truth, but another part expected him to take off the mask, and tell me it was all a lie, part of some elaborate mission. It interfered with my work. In the end, the only reason I stayed this long was for Anko. Anko Mitarashi. Kakashi sounded confused. When I told her and Aruka that I was leaving our team to join the ANBU, she said I was only doing it to follow Hayat. She smiled ruefully. Part of me is still angry her, and wants to prove her wrong. Why? Because that's what she'd do. Yeah, he smiled at that, she probably would. Besides, she's not 100% correct, she added softly. He looked curious, and she continued. Hayat was the main reason I joined the Black Ops, she informed him, but the other reason was that I wanted to learn from you, Kakashi-senpai. Ha, I knew it, Anko laughed hollowly, as Yugao joined them. Then her eyes grew wet. I'm so sorry Yugao, she forced out, for pushing you away. For not making an effort when Hayat died. For everything. Me too, Yugao was crying gently too, I forgot about everything you had been through. I should have broken it to you better, or asked you to come with. How touching, Sakujun laughed, I think I better kill you three before you drown me with your tears. He signed again, and as he touched the ground, a 50-foot-long python appeared under his feet, lifting them into the air. But at the same time all of the other snakes composing his armor vanished. Mistress, are we still needed? The cobra on Aruka asked. Anko shook her head, and the quintet disappeared. You too, Harrier, Aruka told the avian. The raptor nodded, and was gone in a plume of smoke. Let's show this guy what it means to mess with Team Hisashi, Aruka proclaimed. You aren't even worth molesting anymore, Kerai sneered, just die already. The giant snake dove at them, its fangs extended. Weapon art, invincible block, Aruka and Anko proclaimed in unison. Each blocked one of the snake's teeth with their respective staff blades. Though each struggled slightly, together they were able to stop the reptile. Yugao dropped her right hand, and electricity began to crackle around it. She kept her pointer and middle fingers together, and her ring and pinky tight, but otherwise spread her fingers wide. Chidori, Azuki style, lightning trident jutsu. She jumped up, and the 3 spikes of lightning carved through the python's skull, and the traitor beyond. Both collapsed to the ground, equally dead. What happened to the abyssal flare? Anko asked, as she surveyed the remains of their opponent. Without the Sharingan, I can only use the Chidori under limited circumstances, she grinned sheepishly, and what better time than during our old double trap combo? What now? Aruka asked. We start over, Anko told Yugao. The other woman nodded, her smile growing. Great, but I meant should we keep going or head back for medical treatment? Head back, both women protested. All right, he chuckled, Team Hisashi, move out. As they darted towards the sound of battle, Anko groused, who put you in charge? That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.